calling in hour number 3. He will be sitting in the 18th tower for Fox Sports next to this all-world announcer, great friend and a good man. And I'm excited to hear him call some golf for Fox Sports. Joe Buck back on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Joseph?
I'm great. Is that the stuff you said about me when you helped be the middleman for my eventual marriage to Michelle Beisner?
Joe, I always look now. You know me. When you said, hook a brother up, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, I basically stalked her. It was to the point where I was either getting a restraining order or I was going to get married, and thankfully it was the latter.
I did reach out on your behalf, and what's the phrase is, I pumped you for the Heisman, and now look, you're happy.
So not my move too, and
I know.
It just. But, hey, it all worked out. Everybody's good, and here we are talking about the U.S. Open.
True love conquers all, though, Joe. It doesn't matter what your
Oh,
love
my
is.
God. It really does. It really does.
So how is everything set up there at Chambers Bay? A lot of people are up in arms, or they're excited about this setup for the U.S. Open, Joe?
I will tell you honestly, I've talked to a lot of players on the practice tee, not the driving range.
Nice.
The practice tee. And I would say that a lot of the guys that I know and who I think would be honest with me, like Ricky Fowler, who had the great year in the majors last year, didn't win anything, but it was in the top 5 in all 4, said the word that he said and that I've heard over and over again from guys is fun. I think there's the fear of the great unknown, how this course is going to react, how the greens are going to react. Those guys obviously don't like that, and they don't like to be embarrassed. So I think there's a lot of that going on. But I will tell you honestly, Rich, the word fun kept coming up over and over again. I think a lot of the guys with the right attitude about this place, because it's different. I mean, this is not a typical U.S. Open setup. It's wide fairways, long blowing fescue grass, the defense of this golf course, the greens. And I think the guys with the right attitudes have the chance, at least in my mind, of finishing the best as opposed to those coming here moaning and groaning about it. Everybody's playing the same golf course, and at some point on Sunday, somebody's going to raise a trophy unless there's a playoff. And, I think the guys with the right mental approach are the ones that are going to be in the best position, because this place will eat you alive on the greens. And if you allow yourself to get frustrated, you're done.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is it just doesn't look like a U.S. Open. It looks more like a British Open, and I'll talk about that with Greg Norman later on. But do you think that the fact that it doesn't look like a U.S. Open opens your network up for more criticism because you've never done a U.S. Open? Would you prefer, I guess, then, that this would be more of a traditional U.S. Open setup for your first Fox Sports foray for this event, Joseph?
No, I think it's actually better this way. I think, we're being uncovered here, and I think this golf course is being uncovered here. So next year we're at Oakmont, and then you get back to the typical U.S. Open courses, typical U.S. Open setups. But everything's new here. And, maybe we'll have a new champion. Maybe we'll have one of these young guys step forward again like we've had recently, or Jordan Spieth repeating and doing what he did at the Masters. Who knows? But I like it. And there's so much to talk about. That's to me what makes it really fun. So the criticism, you know me well enough to know that after a while you just tune that stuff out.
Right.
And if the criticism comes from Jim Nance or Mike Tirico or Dan Hicks, that'd be one thing. But for Joe Blow or really any writer who's never sat in that seat, whether it's my seat or Brad Faxon's seat or Greg's seat or somebody on the course who's actually done it when the lights gone on and pulling all this information together, unless it comes from one of the guys who's done it, I really couldn't care less what anybody has to say. And that's the way I'm looking at it. And I'm not even going to go find that stuff.
Yeah, well, Joe, I heard Tirico sent you his boards from a previous U.S. Open, his announcing boards. Is that true, that he sent you that stuff?
Such a good guy. I mean, when Fox got the rights to cover the USGA events, he sent me a text, that day. And I hadn't even talked to anybody at Fox about it. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't a done deal that I was going to be a part of it. It was never really talked about until everything settled down after that announcement. But Tirico sent me a text and said, I'm sure you'll be a part of it. Anything I can do to help, I'm here for you. And then to back that up and follow up, I texted him a little bit, but then to follow up last week and to preemptively get to me and say, I'm going to send you my boards. Do you use Excel spreadsheets? I said, yes. Here's what I'm going to send you. And then after you digest it, let's talk. And we talked at the end of last week and went through his process with me, which is so important. I mean, this is so unique for me to walk into an event where I literally have one of the worst seats, and maybe the worst seat in the house. My back is to the golf course. If I spin around, I'm only looking at a sliver of it. The rest of it's on monitors, and thank God we have a great producer in Mark Loomis who can tell me in my ear where we're going and what's going on. But there's a lot there, and so it's a big puzzle that you're putting together every time you come on the air. And I'm here to tell you, when Mike did that, and I don't know Mike that well, but I like him, and now I love him.
Yeah, he's first class. There's no doubt about it. And Mark Loomis, I know we're talking sort of inside sports TV right now. He was the producer of Thursday Night Football for a few years when we launched that, and he also did ABC Sports for years with golf. So he knows that. And there's you, and there's Greg Norman. You mentioned Weiskopf. There's Pavin. But everybody thinks Fox is going to send Cletus out there as a cart girl and hand out drinks like Rodney Dangerfield in the middle of the course, Joe. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, that's
great. I haven't heard that one. I think don't say that too loud, or don't say that ever again.
Okay,
that may happen.
No, but what bells and whistles are going to be out there that we're not used to seeing?
I think the bells and whistles are going to be this: the icing on the cake, and they will come out when necessary. We're not doing anything just for the wow factor. We're not doing anything for the shock and awe of. Nobody cares. People want to watch the golf tournament. They want to see who wins. They want to hear the stories. They want to relax on their couch. I'm talking about the average fan. So if we're doing this to show off, or we're doing this to reinvent the wheel or set the world on fire with all of our neat graphics, we're done. We're dead. We have to make sure we can cover the golf first and then add those in as an extra layer on top. When they're added in, whether it's microphones in cups, or it's these unique camera angles, or it's this robotic camera that can roll down the fairway with the player, it's going to enhance the viewing experience. But it's not going to be anything that's pounding you over the head, and it's not going to be any robots or anything like that.
Joe Buck joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. I got about 5 minutes left with you, so I want to briefly hit on the Cardinals hacking the Astros. I know this just came out about an hour ago. You know the Cardinals organization well. How do you think this news is sitting within the building there in St. Louis, Joe?
It's just so weird to read the headline, which I did in the van on the way out here today. I'm sitting in the truck compound at Chambers Bay, and it's like, wow, controversy hit the small town of St. Louis and the pristine St. Louis Cardinals. I'm anxious to kind of dig into it a little bit further and talk to people in the organization and see what that really feels like right now, because they're just not used to that. It's been kind of the squeaky clean, almost like the Green Bay Packers of Major League Baseball, well-run organization, and now this. I don't know. I'm anxious to see how this thing unfolds, but it just feels like this is the wrong time in what's going on the sports landscape to start hacking. Whether what's going on in the NFL, the Stern penalties that have been handed down there by Goodell, with the Deflategate, all that stuff. I'm really fascinated to see how this plays out.
Last question for you, Joe. We're celebrating Father's Day all week here on this show. We had Rex Ryan talk about Buddy yesterday. We're going to have Jill and Aaron Kelly talk about Jim with him physically here in studio. What would your dad think of you calling a U.S. Open, Joe?
I think he'd be really proud. And, I was introduced to this game on TV, at least, by my dad. We hit some balls when I was a kid. He loved golf, but he was never a great golfer. But I remember specifically saying, Dad, why do you watch this stuff on Sunday? Why this puts me to sleep. And now that I'm an adult with kids, I'm like, I get it. You want to have a minute to relax, and that's really what it is. But he'd be proud, and I wish he was around every day. But when Father's Day rolls around, it's something extra. And to do this wrapping up on Father's Day, that won't be lost on me. Nobody else cares, but everybody's got a dad, and that's kind of how I'll be thinking.
We were showing on screen here for you and for the radio audience some photographs of you with your dad. There was one of you in the booth with your dad and Macho.
How many times have you thought to yourself, how fat was Joe?
No, the thing that leaps out at me was
look at all the hair.
No, what was with you being in the booth with Macho Man Randy Savage? What was that all about? Do you remember this one, Joe?
Yeah, I was texting his girlfriend, and he was upset.
It's a history. Wow.
Yeah, I don't even remember. That booth for the longest time. I mean, Bill. I got to know Bill Murray in the back of that booth. I got to know John Goodman in the back of that booth. Sinatra came into the back of that booth. There was something about that radio booth in St. Louis that it's almost like a little book itself of who came through there and what their stories were. And whenever anybody was doing anything in St. Louis, they'd come to the Cardinal game and go on the radio and promote it. Whatever the heck he was doing, God only knows, was being promoted that night. So why not take a picture?
Joe, have a blast. You're going to be great at it. I'm looking forward to you calling the action. And do you have, last one, do you have the soft golf voice down pat? Are you practicing that, Joe, the whisper?
I could joke about it, but I am kind of concerned about that. And it is a new tone. So I'm between now and Thursday, I'll figure it out.
You sure? You want to practice with me? I got a minute. Do you want to just
yeah.
What do you, so go for it, Joe.
Here's Tiger Woods. He's in the middle of the fairway, lying 6.
I don't know. That's
pulling out a 7-iron.
I got to be honest, Joe. It sounds a little creepy. Sounds a little bit. I mean, we gotta
look at what Tiger Woods is wearing here today. Look at the tailored shirt and the nice V shape that he has. His pants are fitting snugly. He's really in great shape. Look at this guy. Strong.
Cue the drones.
He's strong.
Yeah, okay.
Here come the drones.
That's right.
And I would be blown out of the tower by some sort of a weapon by Fox.
Joe, have a great time. I look forward to it.
All right.
Thank
you, buddy.
You bet.
See
That's Joe Buck.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern. On Audience.